Thanks for tuning in to Side by Side Garage. Today we're going to discuss toolboxes, how to secure them in the back of your RZR, and some of the tools we carry in case of a breakdown on the trail. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and share. So when it comes to toolboxes available for storage in the bed of a Polaris RZR, we've really come to like the Ridgid series of toolboxes here. They're super modular, they seem to be just super tough. This particular set of boxes here has well over 7,000 miles on them, and they're a little over 5 years old. Not a whole lot of noticeable wear, been a lot of UV exposure to them and a lot of hits and bumps over the years, and they've really held up really well. Some of the features we really like about these boxes is they are lockable. So you can put a padlock here, and that keeps that lid from opening up. And they have real heavy duty D handles on them. They can really hold a lot of weight. Oftentimes our lower box that's full of tools is in the 60, 65 pound range. And we can lift it out with the handle on top. And even though it's a heavy lift, the box handles the weight actually quite well. The latching system on this particular box is better than some of the other latches available on some of the other manufacturers out there. So you can actually hear and feel this latch snap into place actually very firmly, and it actually gives you some peace of mind that that box is not going anywhere. And they're modular in the fact that you can continue to stack boxes on top and top and top. So I think on some of the camping rides I've done, I've had 3 boxes stacked in the milk crate box that is the open top that's available from Ridgid. Had that on top with some taller items, lighter items up there, and pretty secure setup. So when we actually take these boxes apart here, set them down, open them up on the bench here, one of the things that we've done on the smaller box here is when you purchase this, it comes with a lid that fills this area right here. And really what that lid's intended to do is to hold the little orange cubbies here in place and to keep any of the little pieces that you hold in them. Say you hold them for nuts and bolts, that lid secures and seals that little cubby in place. We typically don't run those little orange cubbies. We do leave the little dividers in place, but we take 2 screwdrivers and we pop that lid out and we discard the lid, and that allows us to haul stuff that's about 2 inches taller by getting rid of that lid. That seemed to be kind of a good benefit we've done over the years. Both these boxes have a really good silicone seal gasket on them. We found that if we're doing a lot of rides at varying elevation, oftentimes these things can be a little hard to open because of how well the seal seals the box up. If that's a concern of yours, you could drill a tiny little hairline hole right here, just a tiny little hole to allow the air to expand and contract out of there. Has not been an issue for us. I honestly prefer the box to be totally weather tight, airtight, to keep any of my storage in here from getting wet or anything. Some of the other boxes that we've utilized over the years don't have quite as good of a latching system or quite as good a seal on them. For example, the DeWalt T-Stack, the latching system just doesn't have the surface area and it's not metal and seems to fail on us. The box ends up falling off. The seals haven't been quite as good on some of the others. And then the plastic actual material that the boxes are made out of has not been as durable as these. These have taken some hard hits. We put a lot of weight in these things. We measured our boxes the other day. They typically weigh 60 to 65 pounds for the box that holds the tools. And being able to hold this up and support that weight, these boxes have done extremely well for that. The fact that they're modular, they have basically these 2 sizes and the milk crate allows you to tailor what you're going to haul for the adventure ride that you're going to go on. So to secure the Ridgid toolbox to the bed of a Polaris RZR, we've found basically 3 ways that work pretty well for us. They all hold it pretty secure, but they provide varying degrees of difficulty to access the contents of the box. So our first way, probably the simplest way, is to use your generic hardware store ratchet strap, go under the handle, and utilize the slots in the side of the bed of the RZR on both sides. Ratchet this tight. Holds the box secure, however, can't get the lid open. The next one that we've come up with that has worked really well is to use these cooler tie downs, and they come with these little cleats. You take the screws that they come with, screw it down into the bed of the RZR, you feed the strap through, and then you have to provide a footman's loop or a little D-ring here to secure the strap to the box. You pull down, cinches tight, holds the box down. Now, as you can see with the footman's loop up here, the strap secured up here, same problem as the ratchet strap. You can't open the box without opening it, without loosening this. So the next thing to do would be to take this and mount it on the side of the box, and that allows you to open the box up. However, because of the shape of the bed, it's extremely difficult to get down in here with your hands and access the cam lock on the strap here. Which brings us to probably our most successful latch we've been able to utilize are these locking toggle latches here. And so the main feature when you go to look for these on Amazon and eBay is this little lock part right here. You can actuate it, it's on a little spring tension there. That keeps this system intact when you're going down a rough road and things are getting bumpy. So right there you can see it unlocks, and with a little bit of pressure it pops up on there, locks it in place. All the jarring and rattling you can provide, that thing has yet to come apart on us. We've yet to have this system get loose in the back of a RZR so far. Second piece you have, part of this kit, is you attach this to the bed of the RZR, and with a little bit of adjustment here you can get it just right so it applies the correct tension on it and keeps it in place. The big advantage of this is it's quick and easy, and it allows you to open the box here when the box is secured to the bed. So there's a couple modifications you need to do to the Ridgid box in order to get it to sit nice and square and evenly in the bed of a Polaris RZR. We suggest purchasing these 2-inch rubber bumpers that are commonly found on toy hauler ramp doors. So what you do is you buy 4 of them and you bolt them to the base of the box here, and that allows the box to sit a little bit higher. There's a couple added benefits of that. One, it allows you to get your hand in here when you're using this strap style. You can get your hand in here a little bit because of the gain in the height of the box. 2, it allows airflow underneath the box, which keeps the contents of the box a lot cooler. So if you're keeping any food items in here or tools in here that are heat sensitive, that allows that air gap and prevents those things from getting nearly as hot. The other thing is if you don't use these bumpers, you either need to notch your bed or you need to notch this portion of the box off right here. This is the little cleat that the latch latches to from the next box. You actually need to notch this off. And what this does is if you leave it on there, the box will sit down in the bed, but it causes a lot of stress on the bed this way and it ends up cracking and damaging your bed. So ultimately, to not have to modify your bed or the box, you can just add these bumpers and it'll give you about a 2-inch lift on the box and it'll sit nice and perfect in the bed of the RZR.
Whenever you're going to set up your toolbox or your toolkit, there's a lot of factors you need to take into consideration. You need to think about the kind of riding you do, how well built your rig is. Are you setting it up so that you can be totally self-sufficient? Because maybe you're the guy that likes to go out on rides all by yourself. Maybe you're the only Polaris RZR, you're the only X3, or whatever brand the side-by-side is that you drive. You need to make sure that your tools can take care of you and your machine. If you have a belt-driven side-by-side, then at a bare minimum, I would suggest that you carry a spare drive belt and the few tools required to change that belt. Moving on, the most common tools that we have and utilize on our RZRs is this socket rail, and it's set up with the most common sockets, a swivel, a few adapters, some Torx bits, a ratchet, and a roll of wrenches. With that right there, you can change the vast majority of parts out on the trail and handle the vast majority of situations that you run into. Whenever you set up your kit, you need to tailor it to your specific needs. So for example, I drive a RZR on portals and 37s. So I got to factor in what tools I need to work on the portal boxes, as well as what components on my rig see the most stress and the most breakage. So on my rig, since it's got the portals, I need to be able to take off the wheel hub, which requires a couple specialty size sockets. So I've got these in here. That wheel hub can also get stuck on the output shaft, so you might need a 3-jaw puller. So that's why I tossed this in there. I like to carry a large impact with me. This one happens to be a DeWalt 1/2 inch. Now whenever you're choosing which impact you want to carry with you, you should actually start thinking about what fastener on your rig requires the most torque or breakaway strength to get that fastener off. In my example with the portals, my output shaft and that CV nut on there is supposed to be torqued to a minimum of 300 foot-pounds. So whenever I thought about my impact, I wanted to choose something that can handle that 300 just fine. This one is, like I said, a DeWalt 1/2 inch. It's got 1,200 foot-pound breakaway strength and 700 foot-pounds of fastening strength. Moving on, I always like to carry a spare quart of oil. A lot of guys don't realize that whenever you have a rollover, you can actually lose some oil into your air box, your intake, or just out on the trail. So I like to carry that. Now, just because I don't necessarily have transmission fluid or the front differential fluid, in a pinch, if you had a situation where you needed fluid in either of those two, it's better to have a little bit of engine oil in there than nothing at all. Something that I always carry with me is some recovery gear, a tire repair kit. Moving over here, one of the most common breakages on the trail is a ball joint. So I always carry a little mini sledge, some snap ring pliers, and at least one extra ball joint. I always carry a bag of spare parts. Inside of this bag, I always make sure that I have some extra nuts and bolts, some suspension bolts, wheel studs. My rig has heim joints, so I always carry an extra heim joint, jam nuts for each of the various sizes that my rig runs. I like to carry some NICs as well as some JB weld. You never know if you're going to get a small hole in, say, your transmission or maybe your radiator. Now, it's not necessarily going to make a permanent fix out there, but it should be enough that you can actually do a quick job on it to get you off the trail. Right over here, we have another tool that I recently tossed in there. This is a drill chuck, and the really cool thing about this is that it actually has an adapter on this end of it so that it'll go directly onto my 1/2 inch impact. This one is a keyless drill chuck. Over here, I have another one that actually requires the key to tighten it. Something you need to keep in mind is that because of this impact motion of the impact, it can actually cause whatever you have inside of the drill chuck to tighten down quite a bit. So if it's a keyless one like this, you may not be able to get it out, like if you had a drill bit in there. So the keyed one might be a little bit better. That's pretty nice because by turning your impact into a drill, that's one less thing you have to carry out on the trail. Now remember, whenever you're setting up your kit and everything, weight is a big concern to a lot of guys. So the more parts or the more tools you can actually cut out, the better off you are. The whole reason I even started carrying a drill chuck with me for my impact is because a few years ago we were out in Moab and I was crossing through Golden Crack on the Golden Spike Trail, and I ended up shearing off a front axle. And when it sheared off, it actually sheared flush with the front differential. I carried spare axles with me, but I needed to be able to swap that axle out. Well, because it sheared off there, I wasn't able to get it out until eventually someone came along and actually had a drill and a chuck. So what I ended up doing was I drilled a small hole into the axle stub, and then I used a tap and I started a little bit of threads in there. And then I ended up using a self-tapping bolt and just screwed it partially into that axle stub. And then I was able to put a set of vice grips on there and yank it out. Now remember, the whole reason I had to do that is because a lot of you guys say that you can knock it out from the other side. That is not the case on your front differential in your RZR. One of the last things that I would probably think about is some sort of electrical kit for your RZR. Here we just have some extra wire. I would make sure and throw some spare fuses in it. And then I really like one of these multi-tools. These are great for pulling fuses out. They usually have a knife in there as well as some wire cutters. Now again, all the tools you see here are not actually all the tools that we carry, and this was not intended to actually tell you what tools you need to carry out on the trail. This is simply to get your gears turning in your head, get you thinking about trails, trail breakage and maintenance, so that whenever you're out on the trail, you can actually be self-sufficient. What I would highly suggest is the next time you're working on your RZR, you're doing maintenance, you're installing parts, what you can actually do is only utilize the tools that are in your toolbox in your RZR or your side-by-side. What that's going to do is help you identify all those tools that you need so that when you're out there on the trail, you can take care of yourself.